Hello, welcome to Somerset News Network. I'm Ian, and I've been looking at the old Acts of Parliament, and we keep talking about the Magna Carta. And the Magna Carta was first signed in 1215 by King John, because the government was in tyranny under King John. He was forcing taxes on us. Now, the problem is that it was said to have been forced to sign it. So when his son Henry, I think it was Henry III, took the crown a year later, in 1216, he rewrote the Magna Carta and gave us the Magna Carta of 1216. Now he then reaffirmed that act in 1225, and then Edward I reaffirmed the Magna Carta, the Great Charter, in 1297. It became the basics of our rights and liberties. And over the years we've added to it by Acts of Parliament. And I've talked about the other acts. 1354 gave us due process of law. And it's thought that that's what started the legal profession off. There was others in the 1400s and 1500s. It culminated in the tyranny of James II, who disregarded the rights and liberties of the Magna Carta. So the people, the elites, the barons, invited James II's daughter Mary over, and her husband, the Prince of Orange. They came over to Devon and went up what is now the 303 and headed for London. James II didn't get any help from the barons or extra army, so he opted, went to Scotland and then over to Ireland, because he was being helped by the French. There's a surprise for you. Now, because it was the William of Orange, he was being helped by the Dutch. He had Dutch mercenaries with him. Now, this was 1688. They did a Declaration of Rights, but it wasn't an Act of Parliament. It was demanding our rights, and the first part of it, of the Bill of Rights, says what everything was wrong with James II. The second part of it lays out the clauses and the rights and liberties that we have under the Bill of Rights. It took the power away from the crown, because in those days a king was said to have the divine right of kings. What he said went. And what this changed in 1688 was that we got parliamentary government. The Commons and Lords sat together in Westminster Hall, and the king was a figurehead. So you got the three branches of government. You had the Commons, the Lords, and the king. In between the Commons and Lords and the king, you had the Privy Council, and they advised the king. And they also were a back door to the Commons and the Lords. And that's what we've got today. Occasionally, well, I think this is the first time we've seen the Privy Council announce that the king would be the king, King Charles III. Now, people are using the 1215 Magna Carta, and they scream and shout about it, they're reading it, and it talks about 25 barons. To make a quorum, the Magna Carta of 1215 says it only needs four barons. So that becomes a little bit of a dictatorship. It's not done by Parliament, it's done basically by a quango. A quango, you know, of barons. And that's what the 1216 Magna Carta gets rid of. It doesn't talk about the 25 barons at all. It's not mentioned anywhere. And a lot of people are using this 25 barons as a way of Magna Carta of trying to fight the Labour Party and Starmer. I suggest that you read the Magna Carta of 1216, still on the statute book. I know when we had the Enclosure Acts, which is what I was involved with, a couple of those, trying to lobby that common land can't be taken off for building and things like this. One of the Enclosure Acts that we found, it repealed parts of the 1815 Magna Carta. Well, how can you repeal an act if it was deemed to be made illegal? I'd have to go into it again. That's sort of roughly remembered. But what I'll do is I'll put a link in the notes to where you can find the Magna Carta, and you can read it for yourself. It says that they won't sell justice. They won't deny justice or right to any man. That's paraphrasing. It doesn't exactly say that. But that's the basics of our rights and freedoms. You know, you can't be imprisoned without due process of law, which is 1354. But that's in the Magna Carta as well. Man can't be deprived of his land. You know, it's all the basics of our rights and liberties. And you have to read it, understand it, and then see how that applies to 2025. We have these rights and liberties, and we have to make sure that they are upheld. The only way to do this is for us, because we can't trust the politicians. We now can't even trust the police. They're making the law up while they go along. Peel said that the police should know the law well. Well, what we've got to do is know the law better than them. We've got to find out what our rights and liberties are. And then we've got to fight for them. We've got to explain to people, your sister, your brother, your neighbour, blokes down the pub, got to explain to them what our rights and liberties are. And it's up to the people to find out. I think there's some bad actors around who are trying to explain the law to us. And I think that they're sort of misleading us. Like I said, they talk about the 25 barons. Well, that's been scrapped in the 1216 Act. We have rights and liberties. The cities that are free means you can enter a city without paying a toll. The toll roads are free now. That's our liberties. Now, one question. something for you to ponder on. If we have a free city and you can come and go without paying a tax, a toll, a rent, a fee, is the zero emission zone charge illegal? I contacted the lawyers who were fighting it in one of the towns. I won't say which one, but they had a court case, and I actually rung the solicitors up and said, would it be possible that I could have, a couple of minutes with this solicitor? Oh yeah, no problem, they said. They were nice as ninepence. Anyway, I spoke to the solicitor and said, you ought to look at the Rights and Liberties Acts, because it says that cities and towns of franchises that are well used and not repealed should be upheld. And I said, to bring the fees in for low emission zones, they would have to repeal the rights and liberties that you've got. He didn't have a clue what I was talking about. It's just mind-boggling. And they were going to use European law, which is Napoleonic, which is based on Roman law. Our basic rights and freedoms and morals are biblical based on the Bible. And the Bible's got 10 commandments. Thou shalt not kill, not steal, not tell lies. Then you add to this the Magna Carta and the rights and liberties to move freely around the country without interference. That's our rights and freedoms. We've got to understand what they are and then put them into modern language and say, hang on a minute, you can't do that. See, the Bill of Rights says that you can't be fined without being found guilty by a court. So a policeman can stop you and give you an on-the-spot fine without you going to court. I believe, under the Bill of Rights, that is illegal, because it's a fine and forfeiture before conviction. That's the way the Bill of Rights says it. And what I keep on about, which I got there, freedom of speech and debate, is also from the 1689 Bill of Rights. Also, find that online, Google it. Bill of Rights, 1689. Read it, download a copy and read it. The important part is the second part of it. The first part, like I said before, is what was wrong with James II. The second part, and they're all listed, takes the power away from the Crown, makes ecclesiastical courts illegal. So where does that leave Sharia courts? Because they're an ecclesiastical type court. They're illegal. The Bill of Rights says it's illegal. We have to understand what our rights and liberties are. And it's up to you to help everybody find out what it is. I can sit here all day and yacker and talk and explain things. What I'm trying to do is get you to think and then get you to find out. Find out if I'm right. And I think I am. And then tell other people. Tell other people we have these rights. We got people being locked up for a Facebook post or for a YouTube video. We got a husband and wife being arrested for a private little WhatsApp group for their school. We've now got, you can't make this one up. I'm going to do a video about this in a minute. The next video is going to be about the court case of What's a Woman. But I'm not going to go that today because that's another can of worms. A kid said in school that there are two sexes, male and female. He got expelled from the school for being transphobic. How crazy could you get? Anyway, more about that in the next video. Anyway, Ian, I've said enough. Bye bye.